Hello and welcome back to the Shmuseum, where today I would like to cover a topic that we've talked about in the past with a number of the Shmumobiles, but to run through an arrival in the garage, one of my cars, and all of the options with their respective prices. And of course today, it is the turn of my Ferrari SF90 Stradale. Now this has been my first ever new Ferrari, the first time I've gone through the complete specification process, and as you know from the videos, I'm more or less daily driving it. In only about 4 months of ownership, I've done over 4,000 miles, including a big road trip. I've been to 9 different countries. I love the electric motor system, driving it in a hybrid. I love the performance, as I've enjoyed on the Autobahn and also at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and just driving it, just enjoying it, using the car, being worry-free. I think we all know with cars like this, if you do a lot of miles, it probably depreciates pretty hard. That's a whole separate topic, but I spent a lot of time on the options and on the configuration of this car, choosing paint colors to interior options, and I probably went a little bit overkill on the interior. I've just been looking through the order forms and back at all of the prices and how much each thing cost me, and I've had a few deep gulps as I've realized how much I actually managed to spend on some of those. But with a Ferrari, this is one of the key things. You don't really want to create a car, build a car that doesn't have a high specification level. When you look at the market, all of the cars have very, very high specs. And I think it's part of the experience. You just kind of embrace that from the beginning. And to give you a rough idea, the options on that car, options equate to about the value of that, the Aston DBS, or about the value of the V8 Vantage Roadster plus my Focus RS. Terrifying, isn't it? But we're going to have a run through. I've got the full list of options to talk all about them today, top to bottom, everything, outside, wheels, carbon fiber, leather, bespoke elements, because I did quite a few additional details. But I really focused on this with the inside. A lot of the money spent on options is to do with unique things on the inside of the car. Unlike, say, on the Senna, the options on the Senna were actually a touch higher than on this, but I guess you expect so because the car is priced at about double the price to begin with. And they're pretty close, to be honest, and that was more about the outside with the tinted carbon and all of that. So let us begin with the full rundown of my SF90 Stradale and all of the options. And I will add, just quickly, that it was a fantastic experience with HRO and Ferrari in London. Very much enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So stay tuned for the videos on the 296 GTS before long, which will be joining and sitting alongside the SF90 in the garage, my first new Ferrari after all. So the car itself, the SF90, if you have it in completely standard form with no options whatsoever, costs you £382,000, which for a 1,000 horsepower hybrid verging on hypercar is not actually all that much money. To give some comparison, the STO Spec was about 316,000, GT Black Series 335,000, so 382,000 for 1,000 horsepower of the latest hybrid tech in a hard to get, not limited edition, but still limited-ish Ferrari is a big deal. That's, in my mind, crazy, because something like a Valhalla, double the price, something like AMG 1, 5 times the price, both with similar performance, shall we say. Anyway, that's where it begins. The paint. Paint is obviously a topic that people can go back and forth on, choosing favorite colors. If you ask everyone, you'll always end up on black. It's not going to be very exciting. I like bright colors, and I really wanted this shade. It's called Blue Electrico, electric blue. It is a multi-layer metallic pearlescent blue paint. It looks stunning, and I didn't even really need to see any samples or anything to choose it. And that came in at, get this, £10,185. Now that's not so bad. I mean, as we walk around it, for how good this color looks, £10,000 for a paint choice is actually not all that much. I mean, you can spend a lot more, believe me. If you went for a multi-layer Lamborghini paint, you'll be looking at more like £15,000, I think. And this just, yeah, it suits it really nicely. Now you can see I have the contrast gloss black roof, the piano black roof. That is actually a no-cost option. You can either have it with the body-colored roof or you can have it with the black roof, and you don't have to pay any extra either way, whichever one you want to do. I did the black roof because I really like this line that comes around the back, that comes up towards this back section, but also just having the contrast. I mean, if you look around, the Senna, for example, has a black roof. I like that kind of contrast to separate the occupant cabin a little bit from the rest of the car. It keeps the weight of the colour down, makes it look a touch sportier as well, so that tends to be why I go for that. Let's talk about exterior visual things, visual and performance of course as well. 20-inch forged wheels. I went for the bright silver wheels. I love the silver finish. It's very elegant, matches nicely with the blue paint. These wheels cost £3,840 to have the forged lightweight wheel, but you also have to get them with the titanium wheel bolts. It's a compulsory option if you have the forged wheels, so we have the titanium wheel bolts at a cost of £960. So yes, we are about £5,000 for the optional upgrade wheels fitted with the Sport Cup 2 tyres, which is, I think, a no-cost option over the regular ones. That's quite a lot of money, but I didn't really like the standard design, so for me it had to be this design. I still find it a little bit odd with these parts as well, but I've grown accustomed to them and I quite like them now. Next exterior option, traditional Ferrari Scuderia shields. The prancing horse, Cavallino Rampante worn on the side, the Scuderia Ferrari crest. Those on the SF90 are £1,056. £1,000. But they do actually have different panels. So if you order the car without these, it's a different front wing panel because it doesn't have the positioning embossed kind of holder for the crest to be placed. Obviously you can also do the hand painted shields, which is a different price tag entirely. I don't actually know how much that costs, but I really like this. It's a traditional Ferrari thing, isn't it? And the yellow matches with the yellow center caps, which also matches with our yellow brake calipers that we have down there for the carbon ceramics. Those in Giallo Modena instead of the standard, I think probably black is standard, not even entirely sure. In yellow, £1,296. You can see how this all adds up fairly quickly. So let's talk carbon fibre, have a whistle-stop tour around the exterior of the car because I've got a lot of carbon fibre options. We start with the carbon at the front and also these parts that you see around the corners. The carbon up front for the front spoiler, £4,320. Carbon fibre continues. Down here we have the side air splitters for these pods, which direct to the two different coolers by having the carbon part here separating them, £2,112. And then if we come around towards the rear, this is a big one, the full carbon diffuser, the whole rear section of the car, and that comes in at a fairly gigantic, deep breath, £6,720. That's a whole lot of exterior carbon fibre. That's nearly £15,000 just for the carbon fibre on the exterior of the car. Now, if you're keeping any kind of running tallies of this, we're probably at about, what are we, 14, 15, 16, 17, 21, 22, 23, £30,000 of options already. And that's just the exterior. So how do we get to the value of a DBS? We head inside. Come have a look. It will unlock. The key is in my pocket. The interior of this car is wonderful. I really, really like it. The problem is that it's very, very bespoke. A lot of details in here that are specific to my car. Now, this isn't the Assetto Fiorano car. The Assetto Fiorano package is an additional £40,000 and another 20 on top of that if you have the painted livery. That would give you the carbon buckets, all of the carbon exterior, the carbon door cards, the fixed multimatic dampers as opposed to the adjustable suspension that we have here. But the interior is a very different look. So if we start with the leather, we have the two-tone leather finish in here. So you can see throughout the seat, around the back, behind the seats, for example, the dashboard, door cards, everything is a mixture of Sabia and blue sterling. To have the two-tone leather, £4,800 to have the two-tone leather over a single tone. That's quite a lot. The seats are the fully electric seats. So we have the electric controls here. We have the memory seat controls on the door. Where are they? Tucked in there for your three different positions. Electric seats, £4,032. These are also the style seats, and the style seats gives you this insert in the headrest area. That insert on the style seats, and well, having the style seats in general, £1,920. So yeah, this adds up really fast. Another option that I quite like on these seats, if I fold it forward, is to have this full leather backrest in blue sterling. That was quite expensive though, £864 for something that when it's folded back, you don't really see all that much of. £864 for the back of the seats. Sabia and blue sterling as an option, effectively no cost, so could be worse. If you look at the seats though, you'll see the inserts both under the base, also at the front leading edge and on the backrest. To have these in blue sterling as opposed to their standard black, normally those areas would all be black, but to do them in blue was £2,050. Yeah, you're thinking what I'm thinking, but those in black would have stuck out like a sore thumb on the inside of this car. You'll notice all the way around the edge of the seat I have the blue stitching. So the blue contrast stitching, also in blue sterling to match. To do that in blue was £800. And then up at the very tops of the seat, we have the prancing horse, the embroidery of the famous Ferrari horse up top. That was £720 in blue. A few more blue details, namely the steering wheel, to have blue grips as opposed to black grips on the steering wheel, only £432. That seems pretty reasonable, to be honest. The other one, over here on the doors, the grab handles, to have those in blue sterling as opposed to the standard black, £1,080. So all of this adds up quite a lot. The other thing you can see is this extended area around the floor. This very, very nice sabia section that goes around underneath your knees, up over the central tunnel as well, and around the back of the seats, and just creates that area of lighter leather in the lower sections of the car. And I think it looks magnificent. When I saw that, it was kind of an instant must. Then I saw the price and slightly questioned my decision, but went for it anyway. £3,360 to do that, as opposed to having basically your standard black looking floor, which wouldn't give the interior of the cabin anything like the appearance that it has looking like this. You'll spot on the dashboard too, we have all of these inserts, these dual tone coloured sections, sabia around the vents and things, for example. That came to a total of £672 to add all of that. So I'm not necessarily on a direct running total here, but we are something like the best part of £20,000 on leather and colour options for the inside of this car, which is enough to buy a nice car. I am well aware of that. It makes you question. It makes you question. However, we haven't yet got to interior carbon. Interior carbon. So there are a few options inside here of interior carbon. We have, for example, the dash inserts. So the dash inserts are the air conditioning vent surrounds here, also the central section where you can see the SF90 Stradale badging right over there in the middle. Those are £3,840. We also have the carbon fibre LED driver zone, which is an absolute must in a Ferrari. It's the carbon fibre steering wheel with the shift lights up top, and also just the general very nice look of that steering wheel. That comes in at £4,320. Plus we also have the upgraded hi-fi system. We have the upgraded JBL sound system, which does sound pretty good, it has to be said, but another £3,552. Plus, by the way, I didn't even talk about the carbon side skirts when we were talking exterior carbon. The carbon side sill covers, £4,896 for the full carbon side sills. And we're not done yet. We're not done. There are more options to come. Interior, I think, looks magnificent, albeit coming at a price tag. But with this car, it's the SF90 Stradale. It's a road car. I wanted to very much do it in road specification, make it look super elegant, super smart, because I suspect an SF90 Corsa might follow, Pista, Speciale, you name it, whatever it might be, that's probably down the line. Other technology options. Car like this, very low to the ground, front nose lift, to be able to lift up the nose suspension, which works very well in here. It's super quick, does it very easily. £3,264. Headlights. I really like these headlights, especially the way this is actually airflow to do with the cooling and aerodynamics of the car. Adaptive front lights that turn as you turn, £2,400. Something that's an option which you probably don't think should be an option. Front parking sensors. Again, these are not standard. To opt to have the front parking sensors, you are paying an extra £864. And talking parking sensors at the front, there is a parking camera at the rear. That is also an option, £1,536. You can have the 360 surround view if you want the cameras on your mirrors and also up front, but that actually added over the top of the rear camera another £3,250 or so. I didn't go for that. I did and ah about it a lot, but I decided to go without at the end of the day. We also have, I missed this, the contrast stitching inside. As well as having the stitching, the contrast stitching in blue is another £432. Then on top of that, it just goes on, road tax and registration. Actually, the road tax is quite cheap, relatively. So on a new car in the UK now, you pay this staggered price range that starts very high and actually goes down year by year until after 8 years or so, you pay £0. A car like the Senna is £2,000 in its first year, and then it drops down year by year. And that's pretty much the norm for any car of £40,000 or higher. They're all £2,000 in the first year, and then they go down. So it would affect a Mustang or an M car or AMG or anything like that, that's at the top end in terms of performance and therefore obviously emissions as well. In the case of this though, the first year road tax came in at only £545. Feels like a bit of a win in comparison, doesn't it? And obviously that steps down as well in successive years. Registration is a pretty standard £55 in total. The only other option is ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, which in the case of this, with the full ADAS package, gives you your adaptive cruise control, your emergency and automatic braking, your blind spot assist, and a few other things, which I quite like having, especially for a car that, as I've said, is a little bit more for daily driving. ADAS comes in at £5,184, and I think I've kind of included that in the base price of the car as opposed to an option, which actually takes my options prices for this car, big deep breath, up to just over £82,000. Just over £82,000 in options, which coincidentally is exactly how much my Lotus Emira has cost that will be arriving soon for the full car, including the loaded options spec, which means that the total price of my Ferrari SF90 Stradale, exactly as you see it here, even though it's not the Assetto Fiorano, it doesn't have the painted livery, but it does have a very, very, very high specification clearly for a non-Assetto Fiorano car. In terms of the non-AF cars, it is really high, thanks in part to all of the technology and all of the interior and all of the carbon and a nice paint as opposed to just going with Rosso Corsa or something pretty standard. This car is £458,919, just under £459,000 in total for the truly lovely Ferrari SF90 Stradale. And I know what you're thinking, that is a whole lot of money to spend on a car, and in fact that is completely and utterly true. But I tell you what, the experience of it so far has been phenomenal. Going to the dealer, going through all of the motions, having a spec, updating my spec, finding out about bespoke things that you can do. And this is without even going to Tailor Made or to the Atelier and creating something way over the top bespoke with painted stripes and details and using custom materials even, going off the standard leathers. So this as a car is actually fairly regular, but I wanted to create a car that would give this really, really, really nice overall look without being too extreme. You know, this is me just like nudging into Ferrari new car ownership. It's a big, scary world out there, I'm not going to lie, but there are going to be lots of these, hopefully, in the future here at the Shmuseum to dive into in more detail, to understand all of the prices and to do something down the line. You know, maybe if I should ever be lucky enough to get an allocation for something super, super, super limited, that will be the time to really explore different options and come up with something that stands out significantly more even than a regular, if we can say regular, SF90 Stradale. Now, the Spider was a markup on this. The Spider would have been about £30,000 or so more than the Stradale. I went Stradale because I always had this dream of my first new Ferrari being the mid-engine V8 supercar, and that for me was this very car. That is what we're looking at right here, my first new Ferrari. And the dealer were amazing. The whole experience behind it, from the extra goodies that came with the car that I showed before, for example, some nice leather wallets and some nice, well, display items to have here at the Shmuseum as well. And obviously I went down to Italy to drive it for the first time, down in Italy in the hometown of Ferrari in Maranello, and what an experience that was. So it's a very special car. Admittedly a very expensive car, but I thought it'd be interesting to share some of those prices, some of the things that stand out, perhaps some slightly more than others in terms of the overall look. I think the probably most shocking ones, if I can say, are for the interior, for some of the leathers. But if you want to go totally bespoke, the reason for those high prices are that effectively when you're going off menu, it's not necessarily that it costs more to use a different leather than the standard leather. It costs more to create the bespoke spec, do all of the renders, and obviously to make sure that everything is done correctly and there aren't any things that need rework at the end of the production line. It didn't actually add any more time to the build to do all of those kind of details, but to do the bespoke options and to put through the prices, I was also quite impressed by how smooth the whole system was, the whole system behind it. So yes, it was a big commitment, but hey, it worked out. I'm enjoying it a lot, and these are still the early stages and early days for driving this car. There's a lot more fun to have with that rather lovely yellow Ferrari key that goes with it now. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time.